Hi, everybody. Hope you're keeping well. I'm here with John Doherty, and we're about to have a little discussion about his upcoming course, Modern Spirituality. So, John, I guess the first question is, what is this course about?
Hi, James. Thanks. Good to be here today. So, this is a program that has come out of many, many years of work and teaching for myself. So, for many years, I've studied and practiced different faith paths. I was a Tibetan Buddhist for a number of years, a Christian contemplative. I studied Taoism, interfaith, became an interfaith minister, all that sort of stuff. And I was always attracted by, I suppose, the more spiritual side of things.
Mm,
And I began to realize that, gosh, there's this spiritual domain that exists, that we can all enter into,
hmm
whatever our beliefs are. So, Buddhists can access it, Christians can access it, even to some degree, you could say people who have no faith or religion necessarily can access it. It's available to all people. So I wanted to, I suppose, that's why I call it modern spirituality. The idea being spirituality is for everybody. It's not just part of a particular faith path.
mm. And when you say that it's accessible to people of no faith, people who have an interest in Buddhism but wouldn't identify as a Buddhist, when you say it's accessible how? Are you going to be teaching techniques for people to experience this?
Yeah, so basically, the whole course will be about introducing modern spirituality. What does it actually mean? Do you know? So for me, I use a very simple image that we're all these unique flowers in the field, right? And
Mhm.
obviously, we do a lot of personal development work and healing around getting to know myself as the flower, liking myself, healing traumas from the past, relating in healthy ways to other flowers, and so on, right? And
Mhm.
honoring my uniqueness. But what I find is even in mindfulness practice, that's only a halfway house. Do you know? The big
Okay.
question then arises for me, well, it certainly arose for me at a certain point, is okay, so, I've gotten to the stage now where I kind of like the flower and I can relate to the others and so on. But who am I then as the field that we're all connected into, or the sky that holds the space for us? What
Mhm.
what what part of me is that? And so that was the invitation, I suppose, into what I call the spiritual domain, the part
Mhm.
that we're all connected into. And
Mhm.
in the program, it's very much about being clear about these definitions, but also giving people then opportunities to practice this in the meditation, through mindfulness, through some qigong exercises, and very, very practical tools, I suppose.
Okay. And would you say that you're drawing on a lot of the 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 theory, the ideology, the kind of practices of the religions that you've come across and the spiritual practices? It's kind of a combination. You're not saying that you have to be Christian to do this, you have to be Buddhist to access this. You're kind of saying that these are these practices, and people can access these practices and access certain states as a result of these practices.
Yes, it's an exploration. Let's just say it's an exploration of this field,
Okay.
the field that we're all connected into. And
Okay.
so different faith paths will put their own language on that in many ways. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, we can reference, as long as we reference correctly, we can reference the different faith paths. I sometimes might quote Thich Nhat Hanh, for example, in the mindfulness practice, or the Dalai Lama from a Buddhist perspective, or Thomas Merton from a Christian contemplative perspective. So, because that helps to, I suppose, identify what's going on and what we're doing and what we may be experiencing. Also, really what I'm hoping to, bring into the program is an understanding of this language, and how, obviously it's like a Venn, those Venn diagrams that kind of intersect, and the language of, say, a particular faith path, and then the spiritual domain, or the everyday ordinary domain, they all intersect in different ways. But it's really important to understand, for example, I might be talking about transcendence as a spiritual term, but in a Buddhist context or a Christian context, they might language that differently or have examples of that within their context. So, it's one of the things that comes in the course is understanding language, and how spirituality has its own language as well, which is it doesn't belong to anybody. Now, a lot of the statements that we use, because we use a certain amount of poetry as well in the program and ritual, a lot of it's called mythic poetic.
Okay.
So it sounds wonderful, and but it means nothing unless you have a direct experience yourself. Because without the direct experience, it's just a head exercise. Oh, that sounds nice and wonderful and flowery and, lovely and so on. But I'm all about direct experience and embodied spirituality. So in many ways, for me, the spiritual journey is an inner one, into the flower and then into the field and the container that holds us all together. And then the destination brings us into here, into the present moment. Eternal now, as, say, someone in the Christian contemplative tradition like Richard Rohr would say, the eternal now. So that's how I reference these things.
I understand.
So in many ways, this is a whole teaching on what spirituality can be, in the sense that it can be available no matter what your beliefs are. And if your faith path is introducing you to the spiritual domain, to the field, then it's doing its job. But if it's not doing its job. And for many people, it doesn't necessarily do its job, And so really, one of the things I love about MBSR, for example, mindfulness-based stress reduction, is one of the, it became accessible to everybody because it dropped the religious language, if you like, the Buddhist stuff that was in it. And so all of a sudden, people then go, well, it's a secular practice. It's about stress reduction. It's, now I want to do the same thing for spirituality. I want spirituality to be available to everybody, just like modern mindfulness is, right? It doesn't require a faith path or any specific belief system. It can be a direct experience of how we bring more meaning into our lives, how we find deeper purpose, wisdom, compassion, how we ultimately, as I was saying to someone just this morning, sometimes, I find the only refuge from suffering in the world, the only real refuge, is to find our spiritual, what I call our spiritual identity. That part of us that is the field. That's our only refuge. And that is, sometimes described as oneness, the source of everything, the universe. And that's all faith neutral language. But if you are a Buddhist, you would say that's your Buddha nature. Or if you're a Christian, you'd say that's God. Yeah, and if you're a Muslim, that's Allah. And that's all fine. We are inclusive in our honoring of the uniqueness of people's beliefs, because we bring the two together. It's including everybody, but you honoring everybody's beliefs. But again, we're all heading into the field together. That's what it's about. Good Irish analogy, isn't it? Heading into the field.
I also, because I obviously I work in the sanctuary and I see that there is a demographic of people that are looking for that. And what I like about the course that you're holding is that it's an opportunity for people to come together in community, and there's consistent connection with you and the other people in the course. And I think coming along that journey over the course of 9 months together would definitely deepen, um, both deepen the experience, but also feel more connected to people in a similar place. Because I know that there are people that are quite averse to going to church, or averse to maybe going to um, a Buddhist teaching, but they do feel something and they want to feed that. And I think this might be a good opportunity for that to be fed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these days, a lot of people say, well, I'm not necessarily religious, but I am spiritual. But, people's spiritual maybe understanding or experience or awareness is very different to, or they feel that they're kind of on the outside a little bit. And so I
Mm.
think you're right. I mean, this is going to provide a really good place for, as one of my students said recently, I love coming to your groups, John, because I feel like I'm with other crazy people who are like me. You know, uh, uh, and yeah, that sense of allowing. It's a non-judgmental allowing space, because again, I'm not particularly interested in what people believe or they don't believe. I'm more interested in helping people have that direct experience of the field and be able to language their experience and understand that deeper inner journey.
Mm.
Uh, that's really what it's all about.
That sounds great. And I feel that for people who are listening and they're interested, it's important to know that we have early bird prices before the end of the summer. And also, if there is issues in terms of paying for the course, that you reach out to us and that we can try and find some arrangement, because we don't want price to get in the way of accessing such an
Yeah.
important program in the sanctuary with John.
Well, it's a 1 year program, James. And to be honest, you know, like the normal price for something like that would be about 3 or 4 thousand euros.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
sure.
we've really lowered the price down to 980 for this, because we wanted it to be in line with how the sanctuary operates. That it can be, and even if that is a lot for somebody, there are pay plan options and even further conversations around money that can be had, so that it's not an obstacle to doing the course, because we want to make it as obviously as many people can come as possible. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is great.
definitely.
Yeah.
We believe strongly in the course, and if people are committed, we want to help people have that experience with you and go on that journey with you.
Yeah. And also just to mention as well, like for anybody who's already done a lot of stuff, courses and training, and maybe they're mindfulness teachers or they're chaplains or they work in schools and so on, whatever the context is, and they want to bring some more spiritual tools into their work in a way that is really accessible and inclusive. I'm very clear about that. You know,
Mm,
um,
mm-hmm,
this would be ideal for them too, I think,
mm.
to dip their toes into that area.
I think because I like the idea of people coming from very different contexts, and maybe people coming from a particular faith context and people coming from, and just seeing how that conversation unfolds, and like you said, find a common language, which I think is really significant as well.
Yeah, absolutely, because we're all entering into the same field for the experience. And then, obviously everybody's going to have a different way of describing that. depending on their frames of reference, you know, and so on. And I love that too. I think it's very rich and a great way for people to understand each other and share and so on together.
Definitely, definitely. Well, I think I hope that the listeners or the audience are a bit more clear on what the course can assist with and your aims. And yeah, looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Great,
Thanks, John.
James. Yeah, looking forward to it myself. And if anyone has any further questions, obviously they can contact you or me, and we'd be delighted to talk more about it.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, contact their programs at sanctuary.ie and John.
John at, yeah, or John at johnfdoherty.ie.
There we go.
Okay. Okay,
Thanks,
great.
man.
So thank you.
Cheers.